Okay. I'll direct some of this question. I really don't understand the setup of the stira, or the contradiction in the Rambam. It doesn't seem to me there is a contradiction. I mean, in the Mishnah Torah, he's not really ruling halacha. He's saying this is the way Nevi'im acted. And that even coincides with the tshuva, because the tshuva, he says, you're forbidden to sell, but we don't go al derech harov. We go al derech harov. And there are individuals who can do it. Those are the Nevi'im. So, I mean, in the Mishnah Torah, he's describing what happens to achieve nevuah sometimes. And the tshuva is a tshuva for the roof. So I don't really understand Levinger's, Levinger obviously is reconciling it that way, but it's not a stira to begin with.
You divided and separate between the Nevi'im in general, without halocha lemaaseh, and with the Tshuvas Rambam that is halocha lemaaseh, what men ought to do. I agree with you. But Levinger has a different approach for this.
Yes, regarding the music, use of music in 8 chapters, Maimonides tells that if you are if you have a black humor and you are down, the way to heal it is by listening to songs and music.
With Tofechali.
No. He said בשימה אל ארני.
בתשובות או ביד חזקה?
לא, בשמונה פרקים. I know, לא lost it. בשימה אל ארני ואנוע אל העיקת. Exactly what you said in the exactly the same phrase as in the so it's not only permitted it here, this is what you should do. And it also adds that you need also so to take a stroll in nice gardens with nice building, and there is one passage that all the translators didn't really understand. Majalasa el sur el hasne, and everybody translated it as a yeshiva im tzorot naot, but Friedman translated it sitting with beautiful ladies, and this is the right. I think it is the right. So music, songs, and strolling in the garden with beautiful ladies.
General conception.
Yes.
But it's part of the medical concept of what provides good health.
Yes, and it's also connected to the prophecy, because Shmona Brakim is a guidebook how to become, how to get prophecy. So, yes.
Thank you very much.
Regarding the last passage you presented about the war, supposedly differentiating Islamic law from the Torah's attempt to call for peace, and how the peace is better than war. So there's a famous midrash, of course, which I think Rambam also does. Rambam extends the obligation to call for peace also in the context of Milchemet even in Milchemet Mitzvah. One has to call for peace first because the peace is greater, and so on and so forth. And there's even a sense of nasch here, because there's the original, right, divine commandment to annihilate the 7 nations, and then God comes, and the Midrash actually juxtaposes this and says, right, one tzivui comes and really abrogates the other tzivui, which is, it's a late Midrash, of course. Abrogating the law. So what's interesting, I just wanted to mention that Averroes actually has a very similar, he juxtaposes a few Quranic verses, I forget the specificities now, and he says that we should actually prefer the verse that is the least militant and the most peace-regarding, which is very similar to what the Rambam seems to be doing with regard to the extension of the calling for peace. In other words, this dichotomy is, it's a polemical way to, Islamic law is more militant and the Torah is peaceful, but actually there is a very, very similar juxtaposition of Quranic and Torah verses, and a very similar Islamic voice to the effect of we should prefer the peaceful verses over the...
Thank you very much. Caspi, at the end of my quotation, I didn't quote this, said that this is also Rambam's approach. And at the end of this quotation, mostly of his approaches, Caspi claimed that he is the great interpreter of the Rambam.
Yosef, this is a question, I'm not sure whether it's how this is going to come out, but I want to try and push you a little on you said you wouldn't take a comparative. You took a comparative approach to, and you put Christian and Christian attitudes towards canon law, and then you compare it to what happens in the Judeo-Islamic world. Okay. Is there even a basis for that sort of comparison between the status of canon law, which deals with issues which are relevant or have to do mainly with, well, not mainly, I don't want to say mainly, but have to do with the way the church functions, right? And halakha as its status as something which is an extension of, part of, is in fact, sorry, the interpretation of the divine law. So I'm talking here about the theoretical, the methodological part of your talk. Right? Are the two even, when you're talking about their status within their religion, are they even comparable?
Well, I think it's a broader question. First of all, thank you. I think it's a broader question. It depends, of course, where the canon law grew up in between the wars between the church and the princes, the emperors, and the canon law, 12th century, originated in the academies, in the universities, vis-a-vis the centrality of theology and the difference between the northern Italy and, say, Paris University and so on. So I'm not sure that there's a way to compare, but nevertheless, I think we should also say a word about that. And I'll say two things. One might refer to Moshe's. First of all, I think it was Joseph Schacht who characterized the Islamic law through the term jurist's law. Jurist's law term is borrowed from the late Republic, Roman Republic, whereas they had independent lawyers who created the body of the law at the service of the officials. But basically they were independent. They were not serving directly the officials. And he was trying to argue that Islamic law is the same thing. Namely, it is independent from the political power. It grew up as part of the religious commitment and so on, but not part of the political structure. There is some truth about that. By the way, I think it's much more relevant to describe the Talmudic law, the early rabbis, the Mishnah. The Mishnah grew up as the rabbis were independent social circles, independent from the political power, from the priesthood in Jerusalem and so on. But I think the main difference is that if you take, for example, St. Thomas' description of the law, there's the eternal law, and then there's the divine law, the natural law, and eventually the human law. And by the way, the same Platonic structure. But then the church is authorized to define or to indicate what is the divine law. No other scholars. I mean, only official church clerics could identify the divine law. This is totally different on the other context, whereas, as you might say, the jurists, ulama, faqih, are much more independent, structurally independent. But I also want to refer to the last quote that you brought from Caspi, and when he uses the term chukim nimusiyim, I think it echoes or resonates the Maimonidean term or the Maimonidean division between al-namus wal-sharia. Namus is something different from divine law, namusia. And namus or namusia, that might be also related to the Christian tradition. In many ways, nomos is the paradigm for the law in the Christian tradition. While sharia, or divine law, so to say, is either immutable, but also has a totally different function. For example, as Maimonides defined, divine law is not aiming to apply order in the community. Divine law is a vehicle for personal perfection. So it's more personal than communal in that respect. And that, the division between divine law and chukim nimusiyim, regular laws, actually allows also to be more open to the changes within the law, to secularize the law, because this is totally different idea, the ordinary law and the divine law. So I would
Like
just...
chukah and chukim. Chukah in general. It's important.
Chukah is a totally different meaning in different contexts. I mean, the Chazal meaning of chok, which is unreasonable or sami'ah or mitzvah shim'it, namely
But in modern context.
In what?
In modern context.
I don't know. Modern context is totally different issue. Okay, I don't think I think it's totally different. And by the way, this is also in difference from the Talmudic law. Like, the Talmudic law, in many ways, is more authoritarian than the post-Talmudic perception of the law. Talmudic law, I once described it in a paper. It's basically the imagined law of the state of the temple. You think of the Mishnah, Shisha Sdarim, at least 2/3 of that are dealing with the existence of the temple, right? They're not approaching the immediate reality. So the Talmudic law is a project of legal imagery, legal imagination, legal phantasm, maybe, where the rabbis see themselves as part of the political establishment. This is not so with the post-Talmudic vis-a-vis Islamic approach, where the legal profession is more independent and more committed to scripture.
I think the main categories in the third part of the guide chapters you quoted, the first is the first and the second intention, القصد الأول and القصد الثاني. So what he explains is that القصد الأول is the universal, nature-like teleology of the law, while القصد الثاني is the historical, pedagogical task of the law to bring you towards القصد الأول. That's why he has first the chapters explaining the origins from the Sabaean origin from the Nabatean agriculture and other books explaining the origin of specific laws, followed by the chapter explaining exactly that this same particularity, historical particularity, is compatible with a universal goal, al-qasd al-awwal. That's the whole basic category of explaining the relationship between particularity and universality. And the other point I wanted to raise is if you are bringing Ihsa al-Ulum of Al-Farabi as a kind of a quasi-scientific description of the relation between theology and law in Islam, I think his text is incredibly polemical in that way, certainly against the Mutakallimun. I mean, Al-Farabi is always polemical when it comes to the Mutakallimun. And so the way he describes the relation between law and theology in Ihsa al-Ulum is at best, in my view, a caricature, but certainly not an historical description of how the relation between law and theology works, because within Islam, you have a multitude of ways of imagining the relation between theology and law, and it is absurd to reduce it to one way of relationship. That's just, this polyphony cannot be explained in a monolithic way. That's impossible.
So I want to respond, but first of all, I think it is necessary to mention that we have here Hanina ben Menachem, who devoted a full volume to the idea of Derech Harov. The general, within it, there is many discussions about the correspondence between the Aristotelian text, by the way, meditated by Muslim writings as well. So I think it really enriches the picture. But thank you, Gergel. And I wonder, even if we take into account that Al-Farabi was polemic, I think he refers to theology in that respect in a very positive way. He's not critical about Kalam in that quote. I think he, in a way, appreciates Kalam and maybe devaluate it as against maybe other Mutakallimun, but I think that he clearly defines their function. Now, if you're thinking, we discussed earlier about the guide, what kind of book is the guide of text of Maimonides, right? Now, obviously, it's not the philosophy in the term that he creates a whole philosophical picture. It's very eclectic in that respect. And as we mentioned before, he's trying to solve some embarrassment for the conservative, observant people who are, want to keep loyalty to the traditional law while being broader-minded with philosophy and all that. In that respect, this is a theological project. Therefore, I see the guide as a theological project in the very same definitions of Al-Farabi. This is a way to defend some existential position of the believer, who is on the one hand committed to tradition and the way tradition is devoted to scriptures and commentators, Torah Shebe'al Peh, and on the other hand, he also opened enough and fully acknowledging philosophy and metaphysics. Now, we discuss here philosophy and theology in a very broad sense, and in fact, I think we refer to everything which is not legal as either philosophical, theological, metaphysical, whatever. And I do think that we need a more conceptual polishing of our discussions. For Maimonides, divine law has to do with metaphysics rather than anything else. Al-Amr al-Lahiya, it's actually metaphysics, I think, the way we should read Maimonides in his logic. Even though modern translators translate it differently, mitzvot Elohiyot, but I do think that there is some kind of theology, so to say, namely reflections or contemplations on we would call it metaphysics more accurately than theology, I think.
No, just so related to those remarks, I think that there was, if we had followed Al-Farabi's position towards theology, we could all pack our suitcases and go home. Because what is theology? Theology is really, these people are concerned only with respect to defend their theories, and they would use any possible device in order to achieve that. They would lie, they would do anything. For Al-Farabi, theology is
Apologetic project.
No, much worse. This is the contrary of truth. There is no truth to theology. And so he's the most extreme, he has the most extreme polemical approach to theology. So,
and he had a huge impact on 19th century scholarship in the West. I mean,
yes. So theology is much lower than law. And one more thing, Namus, I mean, it's connected to nomos. Well, okay, which are man-made social laws. This is the essence of Namus. So this is something entirely different from what the theologians see as divine law. I think that we ought to take theology more seriously than Farabi.
However, I think that similar descriptions of Kalam, you can find it even Khaldun, in Al-Ghazali, even in Saadia. I'm not sure if in this sense,
No.
the introduction, it says our aim is to defend religion and to refute our opponents.
If you repeat an untruth many times, it doesn't make
No,
it
no,
more true.
no.
Unless you're proud.
I'm not saying that according to Saadia, Ibn Khaldun and Al-Ghazali, the theologian can use lies in order to defend religion.
No, this is something. This is a sort of defense that comes from within the theologians. And they really, people like Saadia or certainly Ghazali, they believed in the truth of theology. So this is so different. Al-Farabi talks like an outsider versus theology. So these are very different cases.
The apologetic aspect of Kalam is apparent in both sources. In Philosoph like Al-Farabi, and in Philosoph like Maimonides, and in the Talmud like Saadia and others, Ghazali. Only here they believe in what they say, and here they think they lie.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way as it is true that that is absurd, and in the same way true to claim that Falsafa is an apologetic project of Aristotle. I mean, that's also a kind of the same way of simplifying the entire picture.
Any more questions?
Another one. So I have to comment on the incest issue. So yesterday I actually asked this question, and Professor Ben Shammai answered that he believes that the Karaite issue, the reform within the Karaite approach to incest, is an internal one, and has nothing. Am I correct? Right, I asked you about the incest issue, and you answered that you think it's an internal issue, and it doesn't reflect on others. Now, I don't want to cause fights, but
What do you mean internal?
Right, so it's internal within the Karaite movement, and has nothing to do with the Islamic, Christian, and Zoroastrian, for that matter, approaches to incest. Now, it seems, first of all, you mentioned that there are very interesting similarities between the stringency of the early Karaite laws of incest and Christian approaches. I was wondering if you're willing to elaborate on not only on the Christian but also on the Islamic, because it seems to me that incest is a very important issue because it defines social cultural demarcation in a very important manner, and it seems to me that the broader debates over incest, right, the Quranic list of incestuous taboos, it seems to me that there is a discourse. An intercultural discourse going on, right? Who's more lenient? Who's taking the golden path, for that matter, on the matters of incest? Now, it is true that even if we take the rabbinite position, for instance, so there is, you mentioned shniyot la'arayot, right? So it would seem that the practical debate relates to very specific issues, with the exception perhaps of sharing wives, right, which is a major one. But the issue of the niece, right, or the cousin, very specific arayot that are actually being debated among the systems, but there is a rhetoric that I think is very important, right? As to who is right about the construal of incestuous taboos and what value lebasar echad, what does that mean, the soul, the body, and so on. If you're willing to comment.
Well, obviously it opens a big, broad discussion. I'm not sure I understood what you mean, internal issue.
I didn't say that. I was
Anyhow, but as Professor Fox mentioned before, generally it was held opinion. I think it was Nimoy who started with that, and then Corey, but they said the motivation for the reform were some social restrictions. They couldn't marry each other. I didn't find any evidence for this claim in any primary sources. Obviously it came from their social perspective, but I didn't find any, I'm not saying it's not true, but no evidence for that. On the other hand, what we call here theology, philosophy, extra legal considerations are there, namely one flesh, in others. Now, briefly, for the Karaites, it's kind of an intratextual debate, right? It has nothing to do with reality. It's not a mystery that, as St. Paul says, a mystery given by God that men and women created as one, and let not separate what God has joined together. But I think it also might be misleading to approach it as a matter of incest. I think it's a matter of kinship. It's about defining kinship. The way to approach kinship or relations between human beings is through incest regulations, namely the one who you cannot sleep with, apparently he's your relative. And now you have to account why he or she is your relative rather than a foreigner. So I think that what really matters there is who is among us or others.
Identity politics.
Identity. Oh, I don't like this term, identity politics. This country cannot say it, but this country originated in the term. But nevertheless, I think it has to do with their self-understanding of how we define the differences. Okay, it's about the differences. It's about borderlines. It's about describing who is part of yourself, your family, your kin, and who's not. Therefore, I think, of course, it has to do with the incest taboos and the meaning of incest taboos. By the way, if you refer to the Kabbalic tradition, in the Kabbalic tradition, incest is basically משתמש בשרביטו של מלך, namely, it is abusing divine praxis. Incest is only allowed to heavenly sfirot. The heavenly sfirot can marry among each other, therefore the sfirot are interconnected, but this is משתמש בשרביטו של מלך is prohibited for human beings. So it's a totally
It's in many cultures, by the way, right?
What?
The mythology permits
Yeah.
incest, and yet
it goes back to Gnostic sources, of course, of course. So I do think that incest taboo was there, and they were very struck by that. They had to account on that. And obviously, once you have the text in Leviticus, you have some lewdness how to organize the idea of prohibited marriages. So I don't think it has to do with the severeness of incest, rather than about kin structure and relatedness and belonging, so to say.
Okay, we'll take one final question.
A comment on the discussion.
Maybe let me just respond to this little thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it does have a lot to do with kinship theories and things of that sort that as a good part of your paper relates. But at the end of the day, these are all chayat mita, so and if you increase the number of people you're chayat mita with, or decrease it, those are big, at least, practically those are big things.
Absolutely. I can only refer to one of the commentators of Nachmanides. Nachmanides' idea of incest, in his commentary on Leviticus, there he says that it's mitzvot liyot ba'aretz. That even incest laws are mitzvot liyot ba'aretz and not mitzvot liyot b'guf. Even incest laws. That's why Jacob could marry two sisters and all other.
Which is also the pshat in H. That's
Anyhow, but he has a whole theology, by the way, a whole territorial theology there.
And now one of his commentators says, how can you say that incest is only a matter of the dependent on the place and territory? This is a matter of life and death. So he actually raises the same question. And the answer to that is, nevertheless, even though it was a severe issue, it was something that they had to account on. Either they had an instinct against incest taboos, they had a full cultural range of different definitions of incest taboos, I mean, ranging from Zoroastrian ideas, which were known all the way to the ancient Greeks, the Greek praxis, the Egyptian Greek praxis, and also intertextual contradictions, right? Jacob, Judah, all this kind of. So I think they had to make sense of that, in a way. They had to make sense of that, even though it was a severe prohibition, yeah.
Sorry, since it's a short question.
Just a short comment. All this, the question of kinship is not only about incest, not only about identity, it's also about money. Because many of these proof texts are money, yes, inheritance.
Inheritance.
They have long legal discussions about inheritance that involve and relate to many of the same proof texts, such as understanding who is she'ero and what is and Kirgisani uses the same proof text of V'hayu lebasar echad to prove that a man inherits his wife, which was a great dispute between Rabbanites and Karaites. So it carries just another major issue that people are involved with that raises this very question.
One word, because I was quoted as saying that this was internal. If it's anything beyond internal, we heard last night Ben Othwith about the discovery of the Sea Scrolls in the Genizah in the form of a copy of the Damascus document, the Covenant, and there really it says that the issue of the Nis comes up there. So of course you can say if there is, as for instance Naftali Vidor thought, that if there is any connection between some kind of the underground existence of these texts, the Qumran text, the Sea Scrolls, then maybe that the Karaites took it from there, but probably not because of inheritance, but because of the notion of purity rather than money. I think so.
Okay?
That's it.